Hey, Pete here, hope you're all keeping well and having a lovely day. Today we're taking an in-depth look at Insurgency Sandstorm, an up-and-coming game from New World Interactive, who previously developed the original Insurgency and also Days of Infamy. Sandstorm immediately grabbed my attention with its focus on strategy, something you know I look for in games, and how it rewards teamwork and objective play, which really speaks to my Rainbow Six Siege infused heart. Insurgency Sandstorm is strategy focused, but without being too slow. It's a thinking man's game, but you gotta be able to react quickly too. While I break down everything we know about Sandstorm, I'll be showing some closed alpha gameplay running in the background. This was provided by the developers upon my request. The game is a work in progress, so the footage won't be totally representative of what the final product will be, but it will at least give you a good idea of what to expect when Sandstorm eventually launches at some point this year. So without further ado, here's everything we know about Insurgency Sandstorm. The original Insurgency made use of the Source engine, which meant great performance on almost all machines, but with lackluster graphics and effects. Sandstorm utilises Unreal Engine 4, an increasingly popular engine that not only offers a significant bump up in visual quality, but also supports new, deeper gameplay mechanics. What's more, both PS4 and Xbox One versions are in the works as well, with nothing dumbed down or held back. All players will enjoy the full fat experience regardless of platform, and all versions are going to launch simultaneously when this game does finally come out. When it comes to map design, Insurgency Sandstorm looks to right the wrongs of the original, with the developers focusing on not only making environments play great for infantry combat, but also cater to the newly introduced vehicles. Yes, vehicles. More on that in a moment. While maps are bigger for the vehicles, they still promote fast-paced and frequent close-range engagements. The map's play areas also adjust to the player count, so small numbers mean a smaller arena, while a full 32-player match uses the entire map. Those 32-player rounds with two teams of 16 fighting one another also feature artillery barrages, helicopter gunships, repurposed commercial drones, airstrikes and drivable transport vehicles. There's an A-10 Warthog gun run that I'm sure will absolutely decimate the opposition. It's not yet clear how players will earn these strikes, but hopefully they're a rare occurrence, as we don't want this turning into a crazy Call of Duty-esque kill streak situation. The variety of weapons on offer, which you'll see showcased in the provided gameplay, along with a bunch of cool looking attachments, use both hit scan and projectile systems, which really interests me. You see, hit scan, which is where the bullets hit their target without a delay and they land immediately, so that's used for the close range fights, while the projectiles, which force players to lead their shots because of the travel time and also compensate for bullet drop, kick in at the longer ranges. On the face of it, I really do feel that this is an interesting approach to combat in a game. You see, there is little more frustrating for us as FPS gamers than poor so-called netcode and hit registration. Particularly I feel in close quarter battles where your hits registering is always the difference between life and death. Having this innovative approach combining the two, where in close quarters bullets operate on that hit scan, but at greater distances you have to have the technical skill of leading a shot, seems like it has the best of both worlds. Being a hardcore tactical shooter, I like the idea of having to lead your shots at greater distances, because this does create a skill gap and it rewards those players who invest the time into mastering the weapons in the game. And we've seen this type of mechanic in games like Battlefield and Arma, and I can only say from personal experience, I've always liked this mechanic in my FPS games. There's a tiered reload system in place where an interrupted reload animation will continue instead of resetting, and this makes reloading in the middle of a fight a little less of a risky move, and also makes weapons with the longer reload times easier to manage in this game. There's also a quick reload which tosses the current magazine and all remaining bullets in it for a speed boost. Players can also hold the reload key or button to perform a mag check. Other noteworthy gameplay mechanics include the ability to open doors carefully for a silent approach, or instead bash them down with a quick shoulder charge for a speedy assault. There are systems in place for both stealthy attacks as well as for when the enemy becomes alerted. Other new features include climbing ladders, breaching doorways, and a team-based comm system which lets you call in support like the aforementioned drone strikes, as well as supply drops too. I imagine these will be gifted to players only occasionally, as the original Insurgency was all about the gunplay, and I think that devs will want to carry that over into Sandstorm. Before I jump into the modes that will be in the game, I'll first talk about the mode that was recently cut from it, and that's the single player campaign. Something that the developers were looking forward to making but ultimately had to make a choice. They chose to prioritise a full multiplayer and co-op experience which improves upon the original. Perhaps if there's ever a third Insurgency game, the devs will get to make a single player that they're happy with while also nailing the multiplayer modes. For Sandstorm though, it's going to be a wholly multiplayer experience, and as we've seen with Rainbow Six Siege, it's probably a good move. Sandstorm will also move away from depicting real-world conflicts, but that shouldn't impact the quality of the gameplay. The silver lining here is that focusing on fictional battles means that the developers can go pretty wild with post-release map content, community modding, character customization and more. Keeping within the realms of reality can be incredibly limiting, and I approve of pushing for more creative options instead of keeping things in line with real-life battles. Onto the PvP and cooperative modes that will be available at launch. At release, the devs are aiming to have push, firefight and capture the base ready for PvP. Co-op modes will comprise of checkpoint, operation and outpost. Now, some of these are returning modes which are known to work well, while competitive tailored game types like firefights, which has 3 objectives that need to be captured in order to respawn, have been introduced to support both low and higher player counts. Rather than implementing competitive support and features into the 3-year-old original, which would have sucked up resources being used for the new game, New World Interactive has created Sandstorm with competitive in mind. Players can look forward to competitive matchmaking, rankings and anti-cheat, which will hopefully all be available for launch. Building a competitive scene nice and early is always a bonus. Audio is also worth a mention too here, I feel, as ears are just as useful as eyes in a hardcore shooter like this. Sandstorm makes use of Wise audio, which should make for high quality positional audio that you can trust when you're tracking down enemies through their footsteps, noise and gunshots. Proximity chat will also be returning to the game. And I think that's a good roundup of everything we know about Insurgency Sandstorm so far. From what I've seen and heard, I think this game is definitely one to watch. The original sold over 3.6 million copies despite being exclusive to only the PC platform. Sandstorm will not only attract those players back on PC, I feel, but also players on PS4 and Xbox One. This has the potential to become big. What with how players are becoming more accepting of hardcore experiences that demand that extra bit of skill. We've seen the punishing battle royale genre take off despite its intense one life and you're out gameplay, and Rainbow Six Siege is still booming over 2 years on. Sandstorm really could be a great thing for those of you out there that are into games like Rainbow Six Siege and other hardcore shooters. Some things I do want to quickly mention though that are concerning me a little bit are, firstly, the vehicles in Sandstorm. As I've seen a lot of games try and fail to incorporate them as a new feature, which more often than not results in them being hated by the community, usually because of balance or issues because they're just incredibly frustrating to go up against. However, I'm willing to give the Sandstorm devs the benefit of the doubt here. They knew what they were doing with Insurgency and Day of Infamy, and I'm hoping that the feedback they received during the alpha and the beta stages help shape an experience that the players will love. I also like the idea of having those maps scaled to the player count, ensuring that the environments never feel empty, but also avoid being too busy as well. There's an art to striking a fine balance there, and I think it's sounding good. We've seen with games like Battlefield in the past where they've scaled maps down depending on the player count, so I do think that that is a good step forward. The new and improved weapon mechanics also seem solid, and I'm glad that they've made the reload system a bit more interesting. It's different without being sort of overly complicated, and the small selection of modes may worry some of you out there, but I think less might be more in the case of a game like Sandstorm, at least at launch, as splitting the player base too much can make for long wait times and poorer connection quality. As players grow impatient, they can often quit, which quickly snowballs and can kill a game. So 6 modes for launch, 3 of those being PvP and 3 for co-op, is something I won't be complaining about too much. So those are my thoughts on Insurgency Sandstorm. Please do tell me what you think of the game in the comment section down below. Is it one to watch? Do you think you'll be adding it to your collection when it does finally release? Thank you ever so much for watching. Do take care, and until next time, adios, amigos.